Welcome to Kubernetes Steering Committee Ask Me Anything. I will start with apologizing because due to flights and various issues, organizational issues, there's only 3 of us. But welcome my new fellow steering committees that were picked. And most importantly, if you remember me standing on this stage a year ago and 2 years ago complaining about the diversity of the steering committee, thank you everyone. Thank you our candidates and new steering committee members, and every one of you for actually voting and shaping the steering committee such that it actually matches, well, closely. We're still not 100% there, but we're on our happy path towards being very diverse and fully representing the entire community that the steering is meant to represent. So thank you very much, everyone, for the current shape of the steering committee. Like I was saying, sadly, we are missing Paco due to organizational issues. We're missing Ben because he got in late last night. Antonio ended up in a different state. And there's one other person missing. 1, 2, 3. Who's the 4th one?
Sasha?
Sasha.
Sasha is just not coming.
Okay, Sasha's not coming. So that's where we are. The mic is here. There is, this time we got prepared a little bit better than last time. There is a page where you can ask anonymously questions. Maybe I'll do the fonts a little bit bigger so that you can actually see the thing. Maybe. There's a QR code that you can scan and ask the questions. It doesn't reload for me, but whatever. I'll just hit the reload every couple seconds. So yeah, I think we can get maybe a short round of introduction because we have new members. So let's start with the new members.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Kat Cosgrove. I'm the head of developer advocacy at Minimus, but I was also the Kubernetes release lead for 130 Kubernetes, and I'm the release team subproject owner and also a tech lead for SIG Docs.
Hey, I'm Rita Jang. I am an engineer at Microsoft. I'm part of the Azure Core Upstream team. I'm a SIG auth chair, as well as on this, the Kubernetes Security Response Committee. Recently became the AI Conformance Program chair as well, and happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maciej. I'm working on Kubernetes since 2014, basically. Previously at Red Hat, currently at a small startup called Defense Unicorns. So if you'll see me with a unicorn throughout the rest of the week, that's probably why. But other than that, I've been on a steering committee for the past 2 years. I'm also helping SIG apps, SIG CLI, and a little bit of other places like production readiness, API reviews, batch for some time, although I've moved away from that group and got replaced, thankfully, by amazing people. So that's that. Okay, we're gonna start with the first question that we already got. What is the situation with Slack?
Oh, with the Slack move, that was dramatic and messy. You were the one actually on steering for the management of that, but the rest of us did watch it from the outside. We are keeping Slack, though, for now at least.
That is correct, yeah. So for basically the situation was a little, like Kat said, a little bit of messy, the entire timeline and everything that was happening. But we're looking at it from a good standpoint. The most important thing is we are staying with Slack, and we don't have any plans to move on. We have assurance from Slack that we will maintain our instances, but most importantly, which even though it was forced on us, the actual event allowed us to audit our tooling around Slack. verify what kind of tools we have, which are working, which are not working, and where we should be looking into maybe improvements for the weeks and months to come to ensure that we will be working. So hopefully that answers that question. Mario, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a comment to this. Most of our Slack integrations will fail beginning of in the middle of next year because of the API changes, and we basically need to rewrite a lot of stuff for our Slack integration. So whoever knows someone who has Slack knowledge, please send them in the direction of contributor experience, because we need to fix this ASAP.
Yeah, and that's the good thing that I was talking about coming from the auditing, because without that, we probably only discovered that after it stopped working. So instead of within a week, we have a little bit of like more room to actually move ourselves and improve the tooling. Okay. Do we have any live questions? I guess everyone are.
Just add something else.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so from the CNCF staff point of view, right, so we originally just had a handshake agreement with Slack to manage all this stuff for free, but we've basically formalized that now, so it's just in the final stages of doing that. But anyway, yeah, from the CNCF providing Slack point of view, we're in good shape.
Was there an alternative to Slack? So, like, I'm not saying to get rid of Slack, but I know we can say, like, there's a problem with Slack. Let's leave Slack, but if you look at the whole Twitter X thing, and then what are the alternatives afterwards? Is it better that we stay and we work with Slack too, because it works, I suppose?
So the question was basically, what were the alternatives considered, or what are the alternatives considered looking at the situation?
I know that Discord got looked at pretty heavily. There was a lot of support for Discord. There wasn't a solution that was perfect. A lot of people argued for Matrix. A lot of people argued for IRC. I have issues with all of those options. I don't think Slack is perfect either, but they're, I don't know, this felt like the least disruptive, least evil alternative to me, was just sticking with Slack, especially if we are now getting an actual contract in place that, instead of the handshake agreement, that makes it feel more secure. I personally would have thrown a massive fit about switching to something like IRC. Even though I use IRC personally, it feels not great.
Yeah, I'd agree there. Like, Slack works, whether you like it or don't like it.
Yeah.
It's working. If you go back to IRC, IRC was fun.
Yeah, and I can pretty sure speak for everyone at the steering committee back in June, where the situation was taking place, that we were very glad that we didn't have to make the final call on the new tooling, because the available options and considering all the pros and cons that we already started looking at were enormous. And even among the 7 of us, we didn't have a reasonable opinions about that. So I'm very glad that this ended as it did. Okay, there is a question. We're having trouble getting new contributors overall, and have been having this issue for a while. How do you think we can solve this?
Could you also read the later question? Because I think it just is the same question with slightly more.
The number of contributors is shrinking, and some of the current reviewers, approvers are less available. Would it make sense to simplify some of our processes to adapt them to this new reality? In other words, how we streamline?
It depends on the processes that we think are a blocker here, and also like some of contributor onboarding and contributor experience in general varies like wildly between SIG to SIG. Like the way you onboard onto the release team is different than the way you onboard in SIG docs or SIG auth or SIG node. It isn't consistent, which I think is maybe a bad thing. So maybe better consistency around practices and policies and what the ladder looks like between SIGs would be helpful, because people don't know where to start. A owning the release team, I mostly deal with people who are brand new to the project, and figuring out what to do and where to go and how to get involved with another SIG is the #1 issue people have when deciding whether or not they want to stick around after the release team. So personally, I think some like consolidation of practices and documentation would be super beneficial there. At least give people an easier starting point.
There's also the monthly workshop happening, and the big shout out should go to the Contribex for organizing those. There are 2 happening for EU and APAC friendly zone, and another one for North America, so that people who are actually interested in contributing, that they can actually start there, ask the simple questions, go through the initial processes. I'm fully aware that the processes we have in place are problematic, and they are somewhat intimidating for a lot of newcomers. I'm looking at different projects, and I know I feel very intimidated when trying to approach them. So it takes time and a little bit of patience to actually go through that. We are struggling with the approvers and reviewers, and one particular group that I'm closely working with is specifically autoscaling. That is actually one of the groups that I'm liaison for, because it turned out that the SIG autoscaling, eventually after rolling their leads, there was nobody who could approve their PRs, which was a major problem for them. So I'm working closely with them. I have 2 people who went through the reviewer stage, and at least one of them is very close to getting to an approver. But we just need to make sure that the rest of the SIGs are doing something similar. There's also a different problem, somewhat parallel, is that we are having not only approvers and reviewers, but also a significant number of our leads in a similar position. They are holding to a position of a lead for a particular SIG, and I don't want to be prescriptive, but I can give you at least a handful of names out of like pocket immediately that are there, but they are not showing up. And we would like to, in the near future, maybe try to return to the conversation about terms that were there. I'm not saying that the terms is the solution, but I'm pretty sure we have to come up with something and ensure that the people have a person or a group of people, ideally a group of people, that they can talk to and make sure that they will be heard and they will get answer. I know that all of us here are overwhelmed with amount of GitHub notifications, emails, Slack notifications. It's not an easy thing. Kubernetes is still a pretty significant project. But then again, if you are willing to stand up and pick a particular role, you are expected to do a little bit more than the rest of us and actually show up, because you were picked for that role for a reason. So I would like to make sure that the people are aware that they hold a certain responsibility to everyone within the project, and especially other co-leads.
Oh yeah, you go on. Yeah.
So I have a similar to this question of we don't have enough contributors. Hearing what all of you do in the project sounds like you're doing a lot. And now you're doing more by being on steering. Why don't we have more people doing less that are approvers and leads? Like this idea of what you just said of people take on a tech lead role, a co-chair role, a leadership role, and then they don't do much. Yourself, Maciej, you're involved in a lot of SIGs that have also very little other approvers and leads, for example, and you're spread very thin, and now you're also on steering. How can you be effective in steering when you're doing all this other stuff? Rita, how can you be effective in steering when you're doing all this other stuff? Kat, how can you be effective in steering when you're doing all this other stuff? My question around that is, how are we going to, on top of getting new contributors, how are we supporting the current leadership batch to build another leadership bench and get us and replace us. Do you know how hard it's been in SIG docs to get someone to take my job? It has been so hard. It's been so hard. How are we getting the support to replace ourselves?
I would love to have a very good answer to this question, but sadly I don't. I've managed to replace myself only in the batch working group. For 6CLI, I'm working on this for 4 or 5 years. And at one point in time, I thought that I was close. I was mentoring a person, and then they switched jobs, and the entire future that I had already painted in my head evaporated. Sadly, he's not even working on Cube anymore. So there are pros and cons, but that's probably the biggest danger that we all have, that even if we spend a lot of energy into mentoring the people, and I have over the years mentored multiple people through various roles, I would like to see each and every single one of them replace me in some area. But sadly, the reality, and I think that also applies and shows in our daily life, is that if you're good at your work, the reward for that is even more work. And that applies if you're becoming a tech lead, team lead, whatever. I'm not even talking about a project, but in your daily work as well. The people who are doing more are basically getting even more work.
It sucks. Yeah. Like, so can we ask CNCF to help? Like, I don't know, like, how do we fix this? Because I'm ready to, like, abandon ship. Like, it's so much work.
I think it's actually two different problems, and it depends on what kind of maintainer it is. There are maintainers that chase titles for clout and then don't do anything because it looks good on their perf reviews, right? There's a monetary gain to chasing titles, and they don't get punished for not doing the work. So that's people who take on titles and don't actually approve anything, don't actually interact with KEPs, don't actually actively mentor contributors in their SIG or elsewhere in the project, don't look for their own replacement, they just rest on their laurels. And that is solved a different way, right? That's solved with something like us talking about introducing term limits. People who, like you, who did actually take to heart the culture of we should be looking for our own replacements, we should be actively mentoring our replacements and are struggling to find them, that's a harder one to solve because it is partially maybe people don't feel like stepping up. Maybe they don't feel like they have the ability, right? Or they don't think to ask because they can't imagine that would ever be them, which is how the person I'm asking to replace my previous co-lead responded to being asked to do that. He thought it was wild that I would ever think of him for that. That's a harder cultural problem to solve. Do we need to have a webinar? Do we need a main conference talk about get involved with Kubernetes? We have all of these leadership positions that are people are going to start abandoning it. Maybe that'll scare some people into action. There's a CNCF staff in here. Can we have a keynote slot for Amsterdam? I'm looking at you, Daniel. Yeah, just trot us out on stage tomorrow, no problem, or Tuesday. But yeah, that is a harder problem to solve. And I think it also varies from SIG to SIG. Like SIG docs struggles a little bit more with contributors than maybe SIG node does because it's not seen as popular enough or flashy enough. And that sucks. So we need better marketing for that SIG, I guess. SIG release has never had a problem with contributors, obviously. We're a farm for it, but that's not necessarily true for I don't know, instrumentation or whatever. So this is maybe another issue of every SIG is so different that there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution right now, and maybe we do need to standardize on some onboarding, some behaviors, some ladders.
The every SIG is different is something that I can heavily relate to because sitting in with my one leg in SIG CLI and the other one in SIG apps, I can see how those two, theoretically simple, because both of them are just talking with Kube, are so vastly different. One is, oh, in the worst case, if I break something, the breakage will be a single command in kubectl. If I break it, the risk is very low because reverting that or eventually reverting a binary in any particular place is easy. If a controller is broken, and we experienced that one literally a day before code freeze, the risk is significant because a reverting entire controller change is a big if we don't act. And if someone has to roll the entire Kubernetes clusters with multiple nodes, that's a major risk. And that risk factor is what's also scaring away a lot of people. That's why I always say, start with 6 CLI. It's simple. You're not going to break anything that much. And hopefully, once you get your feet wet, you'll be inclined to dig yourself a little bit further and maybe try to pick up a controller because you already know how to interact with Kubernetes cluster and so forth and so forth. So yeah.
Something to add, the new person. I do think the Kubernetes leadership roles are pretty intimidating. I think like even just adding myself to be part of this election, like I don't think I would have done it if someone didn't ask. Like it's very intimidating, and same for SIGAuth, same for SRC. If someone didn't ask me to do it, I would be like, oh, like even when someone asked, I was like, no, I don't think I'm good enough, right? So I think, especially like the current leaderships, I think it's even more important that we go after people and be like, have you considered doing this? Because if you don't ask, there's no, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are like, I'm not good enough for that. So that's one thing. Second thing is, we talk about this in SIGAuth a lot, is does every SIG have like a backlog of contributors that we can grow? And I think, again, I know every SIG is different, but I like to think that SIGAuth is doing a pretty good job of growing people and mentoring them and really helping define a contributor ladder. I'm sure every SIG is doing that in different ways, but maybe we can somewhat standardize what that looks like, especially for if, does every SIG have a backlog of people? Who are they? And what are we doing to grow them? Like specifically ask for what is the plan. So that's one. Second thing is you talked about the career aspect, right? This is why I personally love the awards. I think this is how you can recognize people who are not who don't have like the leadership roles. So again, I would ask every SIG, are you nominating people? Are you recognizing people for doing the work, even if they're new to the SIG? And secondly, the people who are doing the work, can you like maybe nudge them to like do more contribution, or do they need help to like maybe work with their employers to get them to actually dedicate a certain amount of time to work on Kubernetes, right? And again, I do think this is something every SIG lead needs to go do.
An important aspect of what Rita was saying, for promotions, I'm not working with Red Hat for over a year now, but still people from within Red Hat, and not only, are reaching to me for references for their promotions. I'm always thrilled to write one down. I remember when Dims was tweeting a couple years ago, like, my favorite day, I'm writing references for people. I feel the exact same thing when I'm writing. I'm struggling to write something because it requires a lot of effort. So if you will come to me and ask me for a reference, don't be offended, because I will ask him, like, can you remind me the list of PRs that we worked on together, that I was your reviewer, your approver, because that, which is something that it'll take you, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes, will save me half an hour, And then based off of that, I can quickly get to, oh, I know, I remember now, this is the thing that I was working with the person and whatnot. And I wrote over the past year or so a couple of references for myself, for other people, not for myself. Sorry.
You have 10 minutes, by the way, until
Five.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we gotta stop rambling.
Yeah, I don't want this to go on forever, but we're looking at a lot of things, and we say around, there's not enough people stepping up, there's not enough people coming here, people go here. But I just wonder, is there anyone here from the OpenStack days? I'm going to bring up a really bad 2 words, and you know what it is: the big tent. Okay? Are we victims of our own success where we have too many projects, we have too many tags, we have too many SIGs, we have too much? There is only, I suppose, a finite number of people that are contributing, etc. I know some people, you can say these people didn't step up or whatever, but maybe do we need to, like the CNCF, and I'm not looking at Dan down there, maybe it's a time to look at, is there just too much landscape, and is it time to say, right, we need to squash in? I know you mentioned about CLI and the API. It's not a good idea to bring them together, but looking at other projects and stuff, is it time to squeeze them in? Is it time to look at what should be there? And even if you took X%, 10, 20% off the landscape, would it help? So it's just coming from a different angle.
So there is the annual reports that every single work group and SIG is supposed to be doing. And then a follow-up work is every one of us has a group of SIGs and work groups that they are overlooking. We are reviewing those reports, and one of the tasks is to ensure that, we're seeing that this work group, special interest group, is not healthy. They're not meeting, there's not happening. We're trying to close them down. There was one example from a couple of weeks back where people were trying to bring back one of the working group, API expressions. And after several back and forth between the reviewer, the steering committee reviewing, and the author, we came to a conclusion that there's no need to bring up a working group. And that's totally fine. It's not us rejecting your idea. It's just we're trying to ensure that we're not creating too many groups, just like Martin was saying. But rather we're trying to contain within the existing groups that already exist.
So I'll keep this short. It's related to this, right? Like, I know that the CNCF wants us to have a certain amount of diversity, and I appreciate and agree with those goals. I just don't feel like we're supported in actually growing in those aspects, right?
We're not.
Can we be, right? Like, at the end of the day, right? Like, I feel frustrated at times where I cannot put the folks that have worked on the stuff as the people doing the talks and stuff at KubeCon, because I'll blow through the diversity limit. And I'm like, but they did the work, right? It doesn't matter that they were born a particular sex, right? Like, they are.
Are you referring to, for instance, the ban on having a panel of all men?
Sure, like that's.
I would absolutely never support removing that ban on having a panel of all men.
No, that's not what I want.
Okay.
I want more females.
Oh, yeah.
That's also what I understood.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yeah,
So
I don't want the requirements changed.
Yeah.
I want help meeting the requirements so that.
I'm happy to help you personally in any way I can. Do we get support from the CNCF for that? I don't think that we do, really, aside from the policies they put in place that control, like, banning manels at KubeCon, which is supportive and great, and I'm glad that we have that policy. But for within the project itself, no, I don't think we do get support from the CNCF on that directly. But you can come talk to me, come talk to the steering committee, and I'm happy to do whatever I can.
Yep. I'll let other people go because I know we have 5 minutes. Thank you.
We're out of time, but I don't think there's anything happening. So if we go a little bit.
I'll ask the question quick.
Yeah.
So.
We have 3 minutes.
Yeah. Someone came to SIG Architecture a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about, like, hey, I'm getting the runaround between GitHub management and SIG contribex and this and that around being able to do enabling some code review tools in their repository under Kubernetes or Kubernetes SIG's GitHub org, because we don't have a policy in place, right? So, each one is pointing to somebody else, saying like, hey, they have to take a decision. So can we come up with a policy around two things? One is, as a contributor, what should I be doing? And as a reviewer, what should I be doing, right? Like, what tools can I access, or what tools can be switched on? Somebody has to own this, because it's not SIGARCH. SIGARCH enthusiastically gave a thumbs up saying, yes, we'll support you, but you got to go talk. And like, I don't know where it stops other than the steering, because you are the ones who have to like set the policy, and then we'll all end up following the policy.
Who owned it before?
Nobody.
That
That's the
documentation
point.
would live in the contributor guide or the developer guide, right?
We are talking about two things. If you talk about like developer contribex helps support the tools that we use, right?
Yeah.
So
Contribex will help enable particular tools.
Correct.
Architecture was asked about whether it's okay to use a particular tool. I'll know that there was a discussion with folks from the batch working group, because specifically for job set, I don't know if that's the same.
Correct.
You're
Yeah, that
talking.
is the same person.
They were
yeah.
basically, they went through a couple different venues,
Right.
steering being one of them. I think
Yeah.
they asked in our public Slack channel.
Yeah.
Our recommendation was basically, as long as a contribex will be able to turn
Right.
a particular
It's
tool.
everybody is pointing to somebody
Yeah.
else, and somebody has to
But I
like
know
own
what you
this
mean.
and say,
Yes.
hey, go do this, right?
I don't think we have any particular recommendation around specific tool, but I believe
At
we
least
can.
a policy is to say, hey,
This is where you,
evaluate one tool,
Yes.
contribex, go do it, and we are steering is okay with it to help the reviewers.
That makes sense.
And then also the other side is we got to have a policy about contributions that are coming in, which today people are maybe not disclosing how much they're using AI for their PRs.
I think we have an open discussion about
Yes,
that particular one.
so we have to close out on that discussion too. Can we
Yeah.
please do that this time?
Yeah.
There's
Thank
also
you.
an unconference.
I put it in there, basically the same topic about what there was the discussion from steering to say like every SIG is responsible by themselves for whatever the usage of AI tools or not. I know that
That's us.
Yeah. Yep.
I know that SIG contribex and SIG docs, we work together on a policy for those two SIGs so that it's like similar, but I would rather have a ruling by steering.
Correct. And again, here, TOC doesn't have a policy. It's for the projects to do this policy,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
as long as it doesn't conflict with the LF one. So,
Okay.
I'm requesting the Kubernetes steering to take these two things.
We are out of time now.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.